The Rangers went into Dodger Stadium, and they got outscored by 10 runs in a 3-game series. And they also didn't have Corey Seager in the lineup for 2 games. But I'm sorry, am I reading this right? They actually won the series? How the heck did they do it? Talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the weirdness that was this series at Chavez Ravine, the Rangers getting some masterful bullpen work from David Robertson, making history yet again against that big, bad Dodgers top 3. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Now, the Rangers went into Chavez Ravine just looking rough. Just absolutely brutal, dropping 2 straight series that they absolutely should have won, and it made you feel really questionable about this team, this offense, and where they were moving forward. I mean, dropping 2 out of 3 at home to the Tigers in the first 2 games of the series, you both lost. You only scored 1 run in each of those games, and then you score 2 runs and 1 run against a Giants team that's not super great this year, and extremely, somehow, one of the very few teams that is more injured and beat up than this Rangers team this year. And you lose 4 out of 6 to those 2 teams. You just didn't feel great about this team, especially when you head in to LA. And the first game of the series, you lose 15-2. What did the Rangers do? What did the Rangers do? They took 2 out of 3 in LA against this mighty Dodgers team, against this phenomenal Dodgers team, against this offense that is just a juggernaut and unstoppable and the best top 3 that we've ever seen in the history of baseball. And, well, what do? Well, they hold them to 2 runs and 1 run after that 15-run explosion on Tuesday, thanks to some great pitching, not only by the starting pitching, but mainly by this bullpen, and mainly by David Robertson and Kirby freaking Yates. Oh my goodness. It feels absolutely exhilarating to have a back end of your bullpen that shuts the door down like this. I mean, I have never felt safer about a Rangers lead heading into the 8th inning if you have arrested Robertson and Yates than I have in years, decades, millennia. Have I ever felt this safe? Have I ever felt this safe in general as I do with the lead heading into the 8th inning? Knowing if nobody's got me, David Robertson's got me. If nobody else has got me, Kirby Yates has got me. Oh my goodness, this tandem is just electric. They are phenomenal. They are everything. No, they are way more than everything the Rangers could have ever expected when they signed these 2 guys. I mean, just significantly better than the Rangers could have ever possibly expected from guys of their age with their history. Robertson, I felt pretty confident about him being at least fine. He has been so much more than fine. Yates, I thought that could end up looking not great, but at $4.5 million, it's a bargain worth taking. Definitely showed some signs last year with the Braves that he was looking a little bit more like the Kirby Yates of old, who even got some Cy Young votes. But, at the very least, he's going to be a solid addition to your pen. You hope Spores, you hope Leclerc are somewhere near their October versions of themselves. Not the entirety of the season, because that would be a bit much to ask, because then those 2 are fighting each other for Reliever of the Year awards. But you think, okay, you'll have 4 guys on the back end of your pen that will be at least okay, and that will be fine enough. No. Okay is the last thing these guys have been. These guys have been extraordinary. Not to mention David Robertson making history in the Wednesday night game, being the first one to ever strike out the side in order on Betts, Ohtani, and Freeman. That lineup has been there. That top three has been there for the vast majority of that season in that order. And no one else had ever struck out those three in order before. David Robertson did that on Wednesday. And then what did he do on Thursday as an encore? Well, he let the first two runners of the inning reach base in Kevin Biggio, his third game, I believe, with the Dodgers, and Austin Barnes with a little single. Runners to the corners with no outs, a 2-run lead, and oh no, oh gosh, here comes the big bad top of the Dodgers order. I got a runner on third with no outs, and this top three coming up. There's no way the Rangers don't at least give up a run and make it a 1-run game, and there's no way they get out of this with the lead. These three Dodgers hitters are just too darn good. And, before Wednesday night, last night, as you're watching this, you're thinking, okay, well, nobody's ever struck out those three in order until David Robertson did it. But surely he's not going to go and do it again. Except that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go and just do it again. He might do it another time if he had another chance. If this was a 4-game series, then maybe he would have done it 3 times in a row. Maybe not. I think pitching him on 3 days in a row would be a little bit irresponsible, especially since Robertson is a bit on the older side in his age 39 season, and Yates is in his age 37 season. But what do these guys do but just absolutely freaking shove this year? I mean, they have been so incredibly reliable. Yates has yet to have a bad game. And not just a couple of bad games. He has yet to have a singular bad game. Robertson has had a couple. There have been a couple of rough outings for Robertson, including a go-ahead 3-run homer on a pitch that was, 3 inches below the zone and would have been on the edge of the plate. And that ended up being a game-losing home run. I believe that was against the Giants that happened. It was one of 2 bad outings for David Robertson, who has been used early and often and effectively for this Rangers squad. I mean, in 28 games, he got a 3.19 ERA. His strikeout rate is in the top 2% of freaking baseball. His whiff rate is in the top 13%. Expected ERA, expected batting average, all of those numbers indicate that this is not some sheer dumb luck thing. No one's barreling him up. He's getting ground balls. He's getting exactly what you would expect David Robertson to do. That's the thing I really liked about this Robertson signing. Even though it was, he's probably wasn't the guy he definitely wasn't the guy who was the best reliever on the market. That was Josh Hader, who is looking a little bit more like his Josh Hader self, but the first month and a half of the season looked absolutely awful. But with David Robertson, the thing that I loved most about him, the thing that is so incredibly difficult to find in a reliever, is consistency. And my goodness, David Robertson has been consistent. I mean, 821 career appearances in the major leagues, a 2.91 ERA. He has just always been pretty good to amazing. But for the most part, he's just been pretty good for years and years and years and years and years. And that consistency, that reliability, that just ability to just plug him in there and not fret about what's going to happen. It's like, oh my gosh, relievers are so finicky. They are so volatile. That's why I was out on giving Josh Hader a massive, massive contract for 5 years. But with David Robertson, I might just do that. Not because I think David Robertson at his peak is better than even most of the relievers in Major League Baseball, but because you know exactly what you're getting with David Robertson, and that is such a rare thing for any reliever, even the best of the best. I mean, basically since Mariano Rivera, Kenley Jansen has been pretty darn consistent, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot of guys in this league who you know year in, year out exactly what you're going to get from them. That's what David Robertson provides. That's why he's worth the money, and then some. And that's why I feel so great about him in the back end of the pen. Not to mention Kirby freaking Yates, who has been a downright untouchable this year. His whiff rate and strikeout rate, both in the top 6% of baseball. His barrel rate is the top 3% of baseball. The fastball and the splitter have been just as good as they have ever been this year. And even when he's not getting swings and misses, he still finds ways to get out of it. Even though he is not throwing 100 miles an hour, he's averaging 93 miles an hour on his fastball. But velocity was never the thing that got Kirby Yates to be Kirby Yates. It's that absolutely destructive splitter and how perfectly it pairs with his fastball and his command. Now, the thing that made him even better in 2019, why he's not quite there at peak Kirby Yates form, is that he is still walking a few more guys than he has at the best version of himself. His 12.9% walk rate is in the bottom 10% of baseball. Now, when he was at the best version of himself, he was in the top 10% of baseball of his walk rate, which was under half of what it is right now. But still, he's avoiding the barrels. He's living on the edges of the zone or below the zone with that splitter, and he has been downright unhittable. And to go from the absolute roller coaster ride feels like it's underwhelming of a term to describe how volatile that Rangers bullpen was last year. It's not just a regular roller coaster ride last year with the Rangers bullpen. It was a roller coaster ride that you would build on Roller Coaster Tycoon if you were a sadistic child like me and would make those roller coasters that might ending in the end of a life of some of your passengers on that roller coaster, or just shot you out off the roller coaster and would just yeet your car into the netherworld, into the unknown. Or maybe you would make I feel like it's the average roller coaster tycoon experience. You never know what you're going to get from that bullpen. Whereas this year, it is like, I don't know, a Disney roller coaster ride. Not very scary. Enjoyable. Fun. Flashy. You can show it to your kids. You can enjoy it all together. You're not going to be screaming and yelling obscenities while you're enjoying that experience. And I like that a lot better in a bullpen. Give me a Disneyland ride. Don't give me a roller coaster tycoon ride. Because if I am riding the roller coaster tycoon ride, what I'm saying is definitely not fit to be said in front of children. Coming up, we're talking about the amazing start from Michael Lorenzen, why this series means so much for this Rangers squad, just scrapping for every single victory, and a little bit of a look ahead at this massive weekend series against the Mariners. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Rangers, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for your unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in the episode description below. Now, last night, the star of the show was absolutely David Robertson and Kirby Yates. Both those guys were absolutely phenomenal, pitching 2 innings of shutout ball. But the guy who pitched the bulk of this game, the guy who has been criminally underrated, it seems like, this offseason, in terms of teams that should have paid a lot more for his services and should have acquired him a whole lot earlier than, a week before the season actually started, is Michael freaking Lorenzen. With 7 innings of 1-run ball against this Dodger team, the only run coming off of that Andy Pages solo shot, holding this team to 0-for-5 with runners in scoring position. I mean, the guy has been exceptional this year. And it kind of confounds me. And part of me doesn't really want to believe it. Not because I don't want Lorenzen to succeed. Not because I don't think he's actually a pretty solid pitcher. Because a lot of this underlying data doesn't look the most friendly to Michael Lorenzen. He's definitely had a big walk problem this year. He's walked way more batters than I thought he could get away with and still be pretty darn good. He's walking 4 batters per 9. He's been much better about it as of late. He's allowed a lot of base runners in general. His fielding independent pitching does not love him because the strikeouts are not great either. He's got 6.4 Ks per 9. But still, he is just getting the job done every single time out. Granted, I don't know if this is going to hold up, if he's going to be a guy with a sub-3 ERA for the rest of this year and keep pitching like this, averaging 6 innings per start. I don't know if he's going to do that. And even if he doesn't, I think that's fine. But I think overlooking what he's doing right now, it needs to not happen. He needs to be appreciated for what he's doing right now. No matter what happens down the stretch, no matter if he sticks in this rotation when all the big guns come back, or if he moves to a bullpen role, more of a long reliever, or even a middle reliever, I think that what he's doing right now needs to be given proper love. The fastball run value, the off-speed run value are both in the top 14% of baseball. Now, the breaking balls have not been great for him this year, in the bottom 4% of breaking ball run value. But you look at the whiff rate, the chase rate, strikeout, walk rate, hard hit rate, expected ERA, all those are in the bottom third of baseball. Outside of hard hit rate, that's the 36th percentile. But still, none of them are elite numbers, but he still keeps finding ways to get things done. And I think it's so fascinating having a guy whose number one most used pitch is thrown 24% of the time. And he throws legitimately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different pitches at least 5% of the time. I think there's something to be said about that. Now, I don't think any one of these pitches is necessarily elite, but I think the combination of having 7 legitimate pitches, kind of like Yu Darvish did back when he was here, of being able to go with so many different types of pitches and being able to, and not only being able to, but actually doing it, of keeping this pitch mix crazy. It just so spread out, so evenly distributed that you literally have no idea what's coming at you in any given count. There's a reason why he has been able to go so deep into these games. It's because he is better against the lineup a third time through. The batting average gets better each time he goes through the lineup. One of the things that he said makes that so effective is his cutter and his slider, being able to go with those, mainly the cutter, but being able to go with those a third time through the order, be able to save pitches until he's going through the batting order a second or a third time. When you've got 7 pitches, you can get through the order the first time on, say, fastball, changeup, slider. Then the second time you start throwing the sinker. You maybe start mixing in the cutter a little bit. And the third time, maybe then is when you throw the sweeper and the curveball. Being able to mix up that arsenal so much is rare. Having legitimately 7 pitches that are all passable pitches, not just get-me-over pitches, not just throw them once or twice a game kind of pitches, but ones you can go to, depending on the day, a little bit more, a little bit less. It's a very, very rare thing, and I think that's a big reason why Lorenzen has been so successful. And his baseball reference, he's the leader on the Rangers in innings pitched. He is leading this team in innings pitched. A guy who didn't pitch until 3 weeks into the season. His first start was in Detroit. He has been so valuable for this team, being durable, going deep into games, making every start, averaging 6 innings per start, which is not a thing that happens all that often in baseball. I mean, right now his baseball reference WAR is at 1.5. 1.5. That is ahead of Kirby Yates. That is ahead of every position player not named Marcus Semien, Josh Smith, or Corey Seager. It's behind only John Gray and Nate Eovaldi in terms of the pitchers. Fun note. Take a guess who you think the Rangers' 4th most valuable position player is, according to Baseball Reference WAR. Take a guess. You're probably wrong. Unless you guessed Zeke Duran. But Michael Lorenzen, being the 3rd most valuable B-WAR pitcher on this Rangers team at this point in the season, is a huge testament to him. And I think he deserves all the props in the entire world. Granted, he only had 2 strikeouts against this Dodgers offense, but he went 7 innings of 1 run and allowed just 5 base runners. I mean, my goodness. That is a fantastic outing against one of the best lineups in all of baseball. But the Rangers, with just a few bloop hits and a few carefully timed groundouts, ended up doing enough to beat this Dodgers team in this one. And they got it from the help of their base running. Talk about that and a look ahead at this series against Seattle right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the easiest way to get tickets for all the sports, comedy, music, any kind of event you're wanting to go to. Game Time is the best way to get your tickets. If you're looking to get tickets to an NBA Finals game, well, if you're listening to this afternoon, maybe this is the last Finals game you can get your tickets to on Game Time. Go check out what their deals look. They've got all kinds of last-minute deals. They got the best price Game Time guarantee. If you find Game Time will credit you 110% difference if you do not find the lowest prices on Game Time. They've also got ticket coverage, so your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the business. They've also got all-in pricing. You can toggle this feature. It'll show you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. What a wild concept. Game Time says, hey, how about we tell you how much your ticket's going to cost? What a great idea for a ticket. So download the Game Time app today. You create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, the Rangers offense has been the story of the season, but in this one, even though they only scored 3 runs in what was a bullpen game, I believe it was originally scheduled for a Yoshinobu Yamamoto start, three runs against Yoshinobu Yamamoto would have been a pretty good outing. But 3 runs against a bullpen game, not ideal, but still it was enough to get the Rangers the win in this one, not only scoring early with 2 runs in the first, but another run in the third. Would have liked to have seen them got more runs, but they still were putting together mostly pretty solid at-bats, including Wyatt Langford, who has been one of the unluckier hitters in baseball. I mean, he started hitting the baseball a lot harder as of late, making better swing decisions, but early on, just some of the strike calls that he was getting rung up on were just absolutely egregious. So it's safe to say that he's due for a little bit of good luck regression. And with a multi-hit day in this one, a multi-steal day as well in this one, and a multi-RBI day, a couple of bloop hits finding their way just over the infield, just in front of the outfield, with runners in scoring position. Wyatt Langford, have yourself a freaking day. The Rangers were 2 for 6 with runners in scoring position. 2 of those were just little bloop hits by Wyatt Langford, doing enough to score the run, and the other run scored on a near RBI single from Nathaniel Lowe. A pretty good at-bat from him, some quality at-bats from the rest of this lineup, including that first RBI bloop hit by Wyatt Langford was on a slider that he had chased off the zone pretty aggressively early on in that at-bat. And seeing him make that adjustment, he saw that slider, I believe, at least three times in that plate appearance. The first time was a slider low and away that he swung through. He just could not make contact. It was not a particularly great swing, not a great looking swing, but he swung through it. The second time he saw that pitch, a little bit closer, maybe not quite in the zone, but he fouled it off, just barely got a piece of it. And then Michael Grove said, hey, how about I go to that pitch a third time? Surely Wyatt Langford is not going to get a hit on that pitch because he's swung through it. He has barely made contact with it, but seeing the adjustment there of knowing, all right, I know what that pitch looked like. I know what I need to do to get to that pitch, and then making that adjustment to get that bloop hit. That is what great hitters do. That is what Wyatt Langford has done in his career that gives me confidence that he will be a good major league hitter. Not just good, but probably a great one. But we'll get to good first. Actually, we'll get to average. Then we'll get to good. Then we'll get to great for him. But seeing those adjustments mid-game were fantastic. Seeing this Rangers offense adjust since they are not hitting extra base hits. The only extra base hit in this one was a Josh Smith RBI double, his 16th, or just regular double, no RBIs, excuse me for misspeaking. But seeing this offense do the small ball things when they are not hitting. Do the right things. I'm normally very anti-bunt, but Josh Smith laying down a sacrifice bunt with a lefty on the hill, a perfectly placed bunt as well, with Marcus Semien on first base. That wasn't just a straight up, I'm giving my at-bat away because I'm a lefty facing a lefty and I can't hit lefties. That wasn't the case. That was not the case at all. It was him making a smart move that Ryan Yarbrough had to make a great play on to actually get the out at first base, because Josh Smith is speedy and he does practice bunting. He does know the right situation to do that. And also seeing this team be aggressive on the base paths and seeing a couple guys get those bloop hits, like White Langford, like a multi-bloop hit game for Adolis Garcia, who reached base 3 times at this one. 3 times. A couple of singles that just found their way through into the outfield, and a great walk by Adolis Garcia. That is a great sign for him. Taking those close pitches, working those good at-bats, because his at-bats the last 6 weeks have been bad. They have just been bad. And seeing him put together better at-bats and rally is an encouraging sign for sure. And seeing this team stick with that aggressive approach on the base paths, seeing a double steal, which why Adolis Garcia doesn't get credit for a stolen base on a double steal, I don't particularly understand. Marcus Semien got thrown out at third base in that third inning. The first 2 outs the Rangers gave away were given away. They were that sacrifice bunt by Josh Smith, and also caught stealing at third base from Marcus Semien. But still, good at-bats nonetheless, and aggressiveness on the base paths, seeing 2 stolen bases in the same game for White Langford. He doubled his season total for stolen bases. He's now got 4 on the year. I love seeing White Langford be aggressive on the base paths and get those stolen bases. Seeing this team stick with it, even when they do occasionally run into outs, like they did early on in this game. Seeing them still have the green light to go for it, to be aggressive, to use that elite speed that they have, and create some chaos on the base paths. That is a great thing for this team, and a great sign moving forward. And hopefully when this team does remember how to slug again, or if Major League Baseball does decide to juice up the baseball just a little bit, back to where it has been in years past, then if they keep doing that and keep being aggressive on the base paths, they could be an absolutely elite offensive team once again. But speaking of teams who are elite offensively, well, that is not the transition to talk about the Seattle Mariners. This is a team that has struggled offensively this year, which I think a lot of us could have seen coming. The Rangers head into this weekend series against the Mariners, 5.5 games back in the AL West, 3.5 games back in the wild card. If they sweep this series in Seattle, they will be above 500 for the first time since May, which they would very much like to be back there. But this Mariners squad has just not been able to hit, but they have been able to pitch their problems, which I think also a lot of us could have seen coming. Just a truly exceptional starting rotation. Not the best year for George Kirby this year. Emerson Hancock hasn't been quite as good as Seattle hoped that he would be. But the positive sign about this starting pitching unit for the Texas Rangers heading into this weekend, there are no lefty starters. What a miracle. What an absolute joy for this lineup that has been eaten alive by lefty starting pitchers this year. And I've seen so many lefty starting pitchers over the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's been crazy how many lefties that they've faced these last couple of weeks. And there's only one active lefty in the bullpen. That's Taylor Saucedo for this Mariners squad. So hopefully the Rangers can start to feast just a little bit and do enough to outscore this offense, because this offense has not been great this year for Seattle. I mean, it's a statement that goes back many years and is very accurate. The Mariners offense has struggled this year. They've got Jorge Polanco, their second baseman that they traded for this offseason, on the IL. That's a huge bummer. I thought he was really going to help their offense. Ty France has been having a much better offensive season than he has in years past. He is also on the IL. J.P. Crawford is nowhere near the offensive star that he was last year. Josh Rojas is cooled off a little bit, but for a while there was a really great hitter. Luke Raley's been solid. Julio Rodriguez, though, has struggled this year, and just go up and down this lineup. It has just been mostly a lot of underwhelming hitters. So the Rangers aren't going to have to hit too much to outscore this Mariners team. With their pitching staff doing what it's done as of late, you feel pretty decent about their ability to possibly go in there and take 2 out of 3. The Mariners are a really good home team, though. This is going to be a tough series and a big challenge for the Rangers. I think they're definitely looking forward to it. Taking 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers is always going to help your confidence. Looking at this weekend's pitching matchups, we have Andrew Heaney versus Luis Castillo on Friday night. We have Nate Eovaldi versus George Kirby on Saturday night. That is the only pitching matchup that I think really favors the Rangers. Then on Sunday, Logan Gilbert, who has been great this year, versus Dane Dunning. Is going to be a tough fight for the Rangers to claw back into this AL West. Hopefully they can get themselves on a bit of a heater as they are starting to get some reinforcements back and hopefully remembering how to hit. And hopefully this Mariners team starts to crumble just a little bit. Give this Rangers team some hope to get back into the fight in the AL West. But one last note, speaking of the AL West, some big news dropped by Jeff Passan right before I hit record on this podcast. The Houston Astros are releasing Jose Abreu with more than $30 million left on his contract. He was one of the worst players in baseball this year. A guy who has had an incredible career, one of the better hitters of this generation, truly. I wish he could have come over stateside a little bit sooner. Wasn't making his major league debut until age 27, where he finished 4th in MVP voting for the White Sox. I mean, this guy was just absolutely incredible in 9 years with the White Sox, an 860 career OPS with the White Sox, 243 home runs and 303 doubles. The guy was just a fantastic hitter and won an MVP in that 2020 season. He was amazing. Then he signs a big deal with the Astros heading into the 2023 season. Scuffles quite a bit early on last season, but kind of figured it out enough down the stretch to be a viable option at first base. But this year, I mean, it's just been awful. I mean, you don't usually see a guy who's making $19 million sent down to AAA that goes down voluntarily. But this year, a 124, 167, 195 slash line, a 361 OPS, and a negative 1.6 baseball reference WAR at 113 at-bats. That just, you cannot stomach that. You just can't. I mean, it's been so bad that the guy who they're going with as the everyday first baseman, not to besmirch this man, I'm honestly happy for John Singleton finding his way back to the major leagues, but the guy who is his replacement, who has been so much better that you can't possibly play Jose Abreu, has been John Singleton with a 649 OPS on the year. Just a fun little note that I thought might brighten your Fridays just a little bit if you are petty and a hater like me and like seeing the Houston Astros having to pay a lot of money for players who are not doing well. Not that I wish any ill will on Jose Abreu. He absolutely earned that contract. He earned that right. And I thought he was going to make that Astros lineup truly unstoppable. I'm glad to have been wrong on that. I'm also glad the Astros were wrong. And I'm really glad that this Rangers team was able to somehow find a way to take 2 out of 3 against this Dodgers squad and head into Seattle, coming on a winning streak. And maybe, just maybe, they will extend that winning streak to 5 games by the time I talk to y'all next. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.